Good afternoon and welcome back. This is BDTV and this is Industry Focus, where we give you updates on various industries, both home and abroad, and of course, local or global, hence identifying the promise and problems of several industries and its economic business value, and more importantly also, how it affects the GDP of Nigeria, lives of Nigerians, and Nigerians across Africa in relative to the rest of the world. So yes, this is Industry Focus. So we've got 4 segments coming your way. I'm going to run them through very quickly so that we know exactly what we do and how we do it and why we choose Tuesdays to make it happen. Number 1 here, our first segment of the day, will be our quotes on blockchain and cryptocurrency. All this you get to find out why it's important to maybe have a side hustle. So yes, our quotes of the day will be on blockchain and cryptocurrency. Second segment, right away, we do have our captain's opinion, where our guest, Chibubem Emelumadu, will be here with us to talk about the blockchain and how it affects Africa. And that topic most definitely is pros and cons of blockchain industry in Africa. Remember, we are the go-to when it comes to industries and how they function. And right after that, we have deal or no deal. And the deal or no deal gives you more clarity on what the Nigerian government has done to enable that industry become a success. And after that, we do have, most definitely, a retrospect, all this coming your way. So stay with me right here. Don't go away. This is BDTV. Let's take a break. Welcome back. It is the BDTV Industry Focus, where we give you that which we need. And of course, that you also even need. More importantly, today we're talking about blockchain and how that affects Africa as a whole, young businesses, and most definitely how we can draw in some measure when it comes to the GDP of Africa and Nigeria. Does blockchain add a lot of value? They say yes, but I will not do it alone. I have my guest in the building. But before I jump into my guest, or rather before I discuss with my guest, let me give you the quote of the day very quickly. We have 2 quotes for you. One, it says here, it says, blockchain technology could change our world more than you can expect. And that is from Jack Ma. It says, blockchain technology could change the world. And the second one is by Akon. It says, Bitcoin is going to change the world from a money to a lot of other stuff. So you see right there on TV, it gives you more clarity that it has been there for a while. Most definitely. So now you know. All right. So quickly, let me jump straight up to the next segment that will enable us even see clearly why industry focus is key. My guest, she's in the building. Most definitely. I'll run through her bio so you get to know who she is. Chibubem Emelumadu, she's the ecosystem lead for Africa, for Lisk, most definitely. I hope I got that correctly. Yes, Chibubem Emelumadu is the ecosystem lead, like I did say, for Africa, where she drives network adoption and connects the founders with the tools, resources, and support needed to launch scale when it comes to businesses, and more definitely, rather more importantly, she also adds more value to that particular area through communication skill that she has. She was once with Binance, the world's largest exchange and leading global blockchain ecosystem, where she played a key role in expanding blockchain adoption across the continent. I can go on and on and on, right? With experience across banking, finance, she has it all when it comes to blockchain and how it works. She's very passionate. Yes, and she's already spiced in the studio. She's quite passionate in these things, technology. She's also there. She has this expansive idea on why it's important to look within Africa, because Africa is the way to go. Let me welcome my guest, Chibubem Emelumadu. You're welcome.
Thank you for having me.
I hope I was able to give some, breakdown of who you really are, and what you do, and everything.
Yeah, thanks.
I'm excited to have you in the studio.
I'm excited to be here.
But how are you generally?
I'm great. Okay. I'm great.
Fantastic.
There's some traffic on the way, but it's usual
right.
Lagos.
It is. So they say Lagos never sleeps.
Yeah, exactly.
But more importantly, Lagos is the center hub of business. So we should expect traffic back and forth. So anyways, welcome to the studio.
Thank you so much.
Today's well packed. And all the questions are for you to answer. Our viewers have piled them up so that we can jump into this. We're talking blockchain industry. So let's ask you, you already have this idea that startups must grow and must become lucrative.
Yeah.
What is blockchain and how does that add value to young businesses?
Yeah. So blockchain is essentially a data ledger, right? Let's explain it like that. So, for example, you have a transaction, right? You want to send it to literally anyone in the world. Once the transaction goes through, one, it is immutable, which means it cannot be changed, right? Two, is transparent, so anybody anywhere in the world can essentially see that transaction has gone through, right? So it's essentially a combination of all of these transactions in blocks, which is why it's called a chain of blocks, blockchain, right? So, very simple definition. And the second question was like, why is this valuable?
Yes, how does it help young businesses really?
So, lots of ways. I like to bring it down to, practical and what is actually happening in the market today. With young businesses, a lot of what blockchain adds, one is like access to generally with payments, right? We have the internet where people can essentially communicate with people around the world, transact around the world. And the blockchain enabled essentially does that for finance as well, right? We have businesses that are essentially using the blockchain for trade. We have businesses that are using it for treasury management. So I think at the core of it is essentially a way to, coordinate transactions, ensure that you are able to pass value across, the globe, right? And you're not sort of restricted to the different fragments that you generally have in like the finance industry. And cut costs and time and all of these things for those transactions as well. Of course, I can go into detail, but that is like the general idea of what I would say blockchain does for young businesses.
Fantastic. I mean, you have it well packed. I'm not surprised, which is why I reached out to you and said, the only person to talk to when it comes to blockchain, crypto and all that is you. But what is the link between, the crypto, the Bitcoin? How does it link? Is it like, yes.
Yeah, so Bitcoin is a type of cryptocurrency, was of course the first cryptocurrency. The general idea of Bitcoin when it launched with the white paper was, peer-to-peer transactions. So of course the link between crypto and Bitcoin is that Bitcoin was the first cryptocurrency. Bitcoin is a cryptocurrency. And after that, you have like so many others that have essentially come up from that. Ethereum was the next one, and Ethereum essentially ushered in a way for people to now build applications on the blockchain, right? And now you have lots of like startups and companies that are also being built on the blockchain just because of the smart contracts that were essentially ushered in through Ethereum.
You are digging out some financial terms that I'm going like, okay, I'm a communication person, but I'm actually like, so it's one one for me now. Which is good because our viewers want to hear this thing. Again, just to follow up. So let's look at the angle of the double-edged sword. What I mean to say is, what are the biggest cons and risk holding the blockchain industry back in Nigeria? We know they have challenges. Let's list them out.
Yeah. So there are a few, right? I would definitely start with like regulatory uncertainty. So of course, like I've mentioned some of the pros of the blockchain industry, some of the things that businesses are using them for today, but without regulatory certainty, right, you find some businesses a bit confused, right? Because of course you need regulation, you need compliance, they need to know that, when I start doing this thing or when I integrate or implement this, you're not going to come after me, right? Of course, we're starting to see the governments, pay attention to that. This is across Africa, and I know in the next few months we'll have a lot more of that. But I would say that's generally one, because it then confuses businesses, but also individuals, right? It's like regulations essentially provide investor confidence and all of these things for the user base. So that's just one, which is not necessarily a con of the technology in itself. It's just like more of the industry. When it comes to technology, I would say one thing which sort of links with, what I do at my company would essentially be this idea of like interoperability or the lack thereof. So you have different blockchain networks, right? So, let's say Ethereum, Solana, Stellar, all of those things. Now, a lot of these blockchain networks can't necessarily communicate with each other, right? So what you have is you have fragmentation of like resources, liquidity, users, all of those things, and it then becomes a lot more complicated for like businesses and users. And that is one thing that, something called the super chain is essentially trying to solve.
The super chain?
Yes. So it's basically a network of different blockchains, right? That essentially saying, why don't we, collaborate using one individual stack, which is like the OP stack, right? Such that, when all of this is rolled out, the interoperability that they're working on, you can then access like liquidity from these like different chains. You don't have to essentially have like USDT on Lisk and USDT on Optimism, and you can't really transact with each other. You'll be able to transact with them a lot closely using like the higher standards. So all of those things are in the works, right? So I would definitely say like the user experience because of that has been a con, just because of how technical and complex it has been. But there is a lot more progress with, some of these teams working on that, including like Lisk, the blockchain ecosystem I work for.
Fantastic. So now let's not mention and find out how this helps Nigeria as a whole and Africa. Okay. We know the more diverse we are, the more there is a greater tendency that Africa can grow, can become no longer a developing continent, or Nigeria a developing nation, rather a developed one. So this next question is a follow through, right? Now this focuses more or less on the talent, really. The talent question, which is Nigeria producing enough blockchain developers and experts to capitalize on this opportunity, right? Do you think we are producing, are people seeing that this is a viable way to go? Have in mind that they also have to pay tax at the time comes. Which next year, we're all going to be slowed 25% tax. But how we see, because of the complexity of this blockchain thing, do you think that young people are run away from it, or they're seeing it as a viable business to get into? Which is why I said, the talent question. These questions are all from our viewers who watched the previous episode, and they want to find out. So when we get people like you talk about it.
Yes, 100%. I think there's so many advantages of the blockchain industry on like young people, which is again one of the reasons why I'm extremely passionate about it. I think something that Nigeria can export to the world is talent and its workforce, right? There are a lot of like young people on the continent, but they need to be engaged productively, right? And one of the ways is essentially, working, you have your laptop, you can essentially export like that talent to the rest of the world and earn a lot more than you might even earn locally. Right? So there's so many ways. So you mentioned like blockchain developers, but there are actually so many ways that young people are earning from the blockchain industry today, right?
So it's actually an industry.
Of course
it is.
Of course it is. Trillions of dollars in the industry, right?
I mean, looking on finance, I mean, just paying the bills. I'm thinking, I'm sure I wouldn't just, look at the media angle of blockchain.
Oh my gosh. So there's so many ways, right? So apart from the fact that the blockchain industry is the industry where, a lot of companies that you work for don't necessarily care where you work. Right, and this is a lot more than the broader tech ecosystem where, now people are sort of dialing back on remote work, but it's not the case in the blockchain industry, right? Like the team I work for, the founders are German, right? And we are very distributed. I'm the only employee in Nigeria, and there's so many across the world, and this is the same for so many other people. And what that means is you can essentially compete on a global scale. You can earn, learn, grow, all of these things in global standards.
Learn, grow.
Yes.
As a young person who wants to get into
yes.
blockchain.
Yes. Okay. And you become a lot more upwardly mobile, right? You can essentially move across the world and get opportunities. So there's that from I guess full-time employment roles, but there are also lots of other things, right? I think a good thing about the blockchain ecosystem as well is that a lot of things are very task-based, right? There's something we call, bounties, right? Where you essentially have different tasks within ecosystems, and, some people can essentially earn from those. Now, these are sort of smaller in value, but you can essentially get a lot more people doing. So I always think about how I wish we could actually capture the GDP of this industry a lot better. Now, some ecosystems are doing that. I know, Super Team, for example, they just shared that they had, $1 million in GDP. Now, this is the amount of money that, young people in Nigeria, by the way, had earned, right? I think in the last 2 years. And this is maybe one person earns $1,000 for doing this, or $500 for doing this, all accumulated becomes $1 million. And that is very impactful to young people, because we can see across the world, entry-level roles, for example, are becoming fewer and far between, right? So this is an opportunity for people to essentially learn and earn. So just from that perspective is incredible. Now, when you apart from all of these roles and jobs, you now actually have businesses and startups, right? Now, that is something that I do a lot with my team. So we essentially provide opportunities and capital, right, for startups in this blockchain ecosystem to essentially build and scale.
Build and scale. I will take a quick break.
Okay.
I will jump back to this because of time, right? Okay. I mean, you're doing fantastic, I must say, and you're giving us all the answers that we expect. In case you're just joining us, back home there, we're talking with the experienced She knows exactly how to make this happen. Let's have a quick break. When we come back, we do have Deal or No Deal, where we're going to ask our guest what she thinks about Nigeria and the same blockchain industry, the laws they've dropped in. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Industry Focus. Welcome back to the still BDTV right here. We are right in it. Industry Focus it is. My guest in the building, most definitely, Chibubem Emelumadu, giving us all the answers that we need in case you want to jump into blockchain industry. We obviously have cryptocurrency and Bitcoin and everything. She's the person to talk to. And it's important that at this point in time, we drop in our deal or no deal. Now, sometime in February, the Nigerian government moved to, sign the bill into law saying that, look, for what it is, okay, while targeting shortcomings, okay, so after back and forth between accepting and rejection earlier on this year, Nigerian government finally recognized crypto assets via a new bill. Yes, it was passed by lawmakers, which President Bola Ahmed Tinubu signed into law. So far, that was sometime in April, May or so. So far, do you think it has helped those in crypto business, those in Bitcoin business, those in blockchain business? Has it regulation, or those regulatory bodies, has it eased up a little? Do you see it as a plus? So is it a deal for you or a no deal?
Can I say a little bit? Do I have to say deal or no deal?
But you have to choose one now.
Okay. I would obviously choose deal, because I think generally regulation is great, right? In terms of certainty. Okay. I think what has happened is that there hasn't been, with all the different like policymakers, there needs to be alignment, I would say. Right. So, for example, it is great that we actually have two crypto exchanges, Credax and Busher, that have gotten, approval in principle, which is great and has enabled them to do a lot more with their business, and just enabled more like confidence from a global perspective. But there's also the fact that, CBN sort of has to be on board, right? So when you have a lot of the larger financial institutions and banks and all of those, people, still not, fully interacting with the rest of the, industry just because they're a bit uncertain, CBN has not, given them the go ahead, then, it doesn't make as much impact as it should have. Right? So yeah, definitely deal, but I would say that, we need more alignment with all the different policymakers.
Fantastic. So our guest has said deal. I'll shake your hand at this point in time. Don't worry. That means that you agree with our flow, which is great. So deal it is. What can we say? If the professionals know these things, our job is to ask good questions and be able to pull across to make it happen. Right, it is time to wrap up the show. But before I go, quickly, we have retrospect. This is the end of the show. Don't worry, this is a question. Don't worry. This is the end of the show. All right, so it says here, retrospect. The retrospect blockchain has evolved from a niche cryptographic concept to transformative technology with a far-reaching, application across numerous industries. Now, the father of, blockchain and Bitcoin, people don't know this, right? But this is what it is. The birth of the first blockchain, 2008/2009, the technology was first conceptualized and implemented as a core component of Bitcoin. Is this a line? Right? By, the well-known Satoshi Nakamoto. Does that name ring a bell?
Of course.
Right? Great
yes.
stuff. All right, so Satoshi Nakamoto, 2008, white paper Bitcoin, a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. I'm speaking your language now. Right, so he solved the double spending problem inherent in digital currency without needing a central authority, serving as the first public distributed ledger. And that's him over there on TV, right? And that's Satoshi Nakamoto. Did I get it correctly? Satoshi Nakamoto. So that's it, right? That's Satoshi Nakamoto. What do you think? As the father of Bitcoin.
About Satoshi?
Yes.
I think it's a real one.
It's a real one.
Okay. The whole industry.
All right.
And disappeared.
And disappeared. That's the thing. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Anyways, Chibubem, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Without you, there's no way we could have, got all this information across. We hope we'll call you again soon enough, and you will show up maybe on time.
Of
I know I got you there, right?
Of course. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Coming through. Most definitely. Ladies and gentlemen, until next week Tuesday, yes, we touched on Bitcoin today. We touched on, blockchain and more of that industry when it comes to cryptocurrency. Who knows? Might do a part 2. Until next week Tuesday, don't forget, BDTV it is. Industry focus, it will always be. Onyeka Valentine is my name.